Just a little background actually on myself for those of you who don't know me, for those of you who've heard this spiel before. I'm sorry you're going to have to hear me talking about me. But I'm obviously just the director of Alphadog AnimalArmy. Alphadog was established as a husky rescue organisation. AnimalArmy was established later on, which was to actually take care of the wildlife and rescue component, as well as what we do now, which is innovation and research. I'm also been in the military for 28 years, so I'm an Air Force photographer by trade. Been deployed around the world a number of times and seen the best and worst of human nature. I'm a qualified military marksman, and so I'm using my mad skills and my greater good for animals. And I am one of 3 tranquillizer firearms instructors in the country. I'm actually the leading tranquillizer firearms instructor in the country, and the reason I am that is not self-proclaimed or to blow my own whistle, but it's actually because I have military experience. I am a qualified marksman, and I've seen the deficiencies, not only in government, which I'll show later on in some of my images, but I've seen the absolute appalling standard of marksmanship. People can get a permit, it's not a problem. You go up for a course, don't even have to, you actually hold the rifle. And then off they go. And they're doing research, and they're failing. And they're darting animals, and they're killing them. And then they're quoting high mortality rates in public documents. So, you know, big questions need to be asked. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why I'm passionate. And I want to take you through this journey now. And I've got to warn you, there are actually a lot of graphic images. And I don't make any apologies for it. And I want you all to see it. So some of this fantastic work is at the hands of the A.C.T government and these skilled marksmen, they're professionals. How fantastic the kangaroo shooting industry is, how accountable it is. You know, all this garbage you keep hearing. So I'll show you some images now. Many of you probably have seen that image before. You know, we keep hearing, we're bullied. And I've just got to really emphasise that point, we're bullied into hearing how fantastic these guys are. Headshots, all headshots. They've got their expert, who usually goes along, who appeared in ACT. He was my number 2. He was the guy that was supposed to be their tranquillizer expert. He's a vet with a tranquillizer permit. Probably takes that rifle out once a month, darts animals. His claim to fame is that he's got a master's in chemical immobilisation. That's as good as they've got. That's their expert coming up against me. So when they're claiming high mortality rates and they've got experts and they're failing, it's because they're incompetent. A lot of this other stuff that we're going to be seeing now, this is recent rescue work. Steve actually took these guys into care. And the reason I'm showing you this stuff is so you can insight into what I deal with and why I pursue what I'm pursuing, especially knowing what I know and the skill sets that I have, and seeing the deficiencies in government, and then dragging their feet with laborious research. And I won't even get onto that at the moment, but we'll get on to the over-labouring, the duping you with laborious costs, and just basically totally making a mockery of a simple process, just so we don't have to introduce fertility control straight away, even though we have it immediately implementable now as a research project. But I'm showing you some of these because these are the byproduct of the ignorance in this country when it comes to kangaroos. You know, we've got these clowns perpetuating a myth of abundance. Let's just have an annual cull. The guy appeared in ACAT. And I wish you could afford the transcript, which will cost you $5,500, which was, we actually told Shane Ratbury to go pay for it. He wouldn't do it. And he signed off on a cull anyway. But there's the A.C.T government, where Fletcher actually admitted his work, his projection model, was flawed and wrong. Yet he had it peer reviewed by Graham Coulson. So here we have flawed and wrong information. Big thumbs up by Graham Coulson, peer reviewed, off you go kill a whole bunch of animals, son. Fantastic. This is the accountability we're talking about. I mean, seriously, it's an insult to people's intelligence. And it perpetuates the myth across the border. This is only just in New South Wales, just near Steve. where yahoos go around blooding the shit out of kangaroos. This mother, I actually tranquilised her, had this in pouch Joey. So she was shot through the face, and she was unable to actually toilet and feed and look after her Joey. So because she wasn't able to obviously feed herself, we have malnutrition in the Joey. But let's really just, have a look at this for a moment, because this is because of the myth of the abundance. There are pest species. I mean, we have the Invasive Species Council. Obviously, it's a government department, yes, Steve? Invasive Species Council. We're actually calling them invasive species now. And, these are people who are actually doing research into fertility control. And because of this myth, people think, and now they're a pest, we can be a bigger arsehole to wildlife and treat them even worse. So the lower they are on the food chain, especially if they're a pest, if they're a fox, rabbit, whatever, the worse they get treated. Wombats. So that was her facial wound, shot through the face. These are our marksmen. These are our people who get permits from the government. And we're only talking about a fence line here, so don't think, oh, this is in New South Wales. New South Wales. We're talking about a matter of kilometres. People are people. Either side of the border, it doesn't matter. But the thing is, though, when you create this myth and this demonisation of an animal, the worse people get towards them. And this is what I see on a daily basis. Steve sees this, and we're inundated. There's only a handful of people looking after these animals. And the thing is, the question is why? Why do you bother? When they're being shot left, right and centre by the A.C.T government, I mean, with zero justification, I mean, they're burning the crap out of nature reserves. So if you like your legless lizard char grilled, so much for endangered species. So, and then we have the kangaroo industry. Highly accountable. Just ask them. Here's this redneck arsehole. He was working across the property from me. And I'm a rural landholder, so it's not like I'm speaking from, some cushy apartment and I've got opinions. I mean, I'm a rural landholder. I see this stuff on a daily basis. They know I'm a military marksman, so they don't shoot anywhere near me anymore. So, but this is the face of the kangaroo industry. So we actually busted these guys coming out, no tags on the kangaroos. And I'll just have a side note for a moment. There's a girl who's actually out there at 2 o'clock in the morning fronting up to these guys. And have a look at the demographic in this room. Mostly females. So ladies, big thumbs up. More courage than most men. And we need more men actually fighting this fight as well, to actually start bringing skill sets in. Start rescuing animals. Start having really a presence in this front. But anyway, so this is the face of the kangaroo industry. And inside this vehicle, compliance officer from the kangaroo industry. No tags on the kangaroos. This guy's trying to fight me, and I mean, they just show they're cowards. But there's a compliance officer sitting in a vehicle. Police were called. There was a police investigation into this. And he did lose his licence. But the thing is, though, the laws are so inept due to this abundantly perpetuated myth of abundance and this demonisation of kangaroos that no one gives a shit. Some of the cops are shooters. There's some of the mates of some of the shooters. So, a lot of this kind of just gets brushed under the table. I mean, I was even on the phone with the police and I was saying, don't worry about it, they're just kangaroos. But you know what? Some of these are mine. I've cared for. I've rescued, I've released. So, if you can understand even just a tiny, minuscule amount of the passion I have when I see ignorance, incompetence, and negligence in government bullshitting about research and what they're doing and how long it's taking. I mean, the claims from government, and I actually only saw another example today of this perpetuation of this myth, especially when it comes to research. There's Melbourne University doing another research project, and it's ironic that it reflects the same methodology as the A.C.T government. There they are, working on a captive population that aren't free roaming. Let's never do it on free roaming, because that will actually end the kangaroo industry. And that's what we don't want to do, do we? We want to have this sustainable resource. Have a look at where these dots join when it comes to their expert witnesses. A lot of these people are pro-kangaroo industry. A lot of these people write papers on, especially the expert witnesses. They want to see a continuation of the kangaroo industry. They're a sustainable resource. So how can you have these people as your experts working on fertility control and have a legitimate agenda to actually achieve a result when you actually want to see them barbecued? Tell me, is that far-fetched? That that's a conflict of interest? But guess what? You just get bullied out of the way, you're an idiot. Just don't worry about it with the government. And we'll go to ACT, mark your own homework, and you can get lost. And that's the cycle. So that's why I keep showing you this stuff. This is just an average day, anywhere in Australia. Shot the tail, shot through the throat, legs hacked off, shot through the chest. Because they're garbage. Are they not? I mean, geez, they kill them every year in the ACT. It's not the largest cull, and I've got to say to the ACT government, it's not the largest cull in Australia by any means, but it has the biggest spotlight on it. And because they're claiming to do the most research in Australia, all the other governments are actually watching what the ACT government are doing. So when they get around to publishing a paper, which is shit never, because guess what? When you're in the government, you don't have to publish a paper. Not on anything important, because if it's not published, it doesn't exist. So we can't implement it. That's ACT government logic, and that's what they'll throw at you in ACAT, court, whatever. So with that logic, you know, you just, all you can do is essentially provide the public with this information and pursue research. And now we're actually pursuing, hopefully, a project separately with the Victorian government, which will be on free-roaming animals. Because what's going on currently in Victoria is, just going back to that point, they're actually doing it on a captive population, and it will be deemed not practical to free-roaming populations. And the guy who's overseeing this has the MO of doing the same thing over and over again, where he just does silly little projects. It's all whimsical fun, let's stick some ear tags and some tracking collars on and then go, look, not practical to free roaming, because we don't want it to happen. You know, people make money from this shit. You know, we can't have wildlife because they're a resource that we should be exploiting. So pulling joeys out of the dead mothers who would have actually died in their own blood. Throat shots. So once again, there's no accountability for marksmanship or any standard, and this actually now leads on to another component of something I'm going to be pushing this year as well, especially in the year of an election. We can look at this federally, which is actually compulsory range testing for everyone that holds a firearm. More so if you actually get permits to shoot kangaroos or any other wildlife. And this includes farmers, because as a firearms instructor, I can guarantee you I would take firearms off probably 60% of the people I've dealt with. And legislation is too weak to do that currently, because unfortunately when people pay their money, they literally get their permit. And they can go off and be as nasty and as cruel as they want. And it's fun. A few more drinks, go shooting kangaroos. And that's exactly what happened here. Bad animal handling. This is actually the ACT government. This is from 360-degree films. The Kangaroo Mob. Not sure if anyone ever seen that documentary? Yeah. If you've ever seen the unedited version, so the one that was actually filmed at the CSI Rome Theaterette, where Claire bounced a dart off a non-oblique target. So this is what I'm talking about, marksmanship. So this government are claiming high mortality rates, things that aren't practical, things that can't be achieved, yet they're doing things I would fail. If I could, I'd remove their licence, seeing shit like that. Because that's, to me, negligence with a firearm. When you're bouncing a dart off a kangaroo and potentially hitting it in the head, you're not supposed to dart them in the head. So, and this was actually a component from that same original clip. of this joey that was actually originally hanging from the fence, and they did the whole, oh, let's treat it and look at it and cover its face, and let's stand right next to the fence that we pulled it out of and release it. So this is handling. So when we're talking about the big picture stuff here, high mortality rates, things that can't be achieved, you know, myopathy, you know, the stresses kangaroos actually endure, all comes down to negligence. When you can actually minimise the stress through correct remote capture, proper dosage rates, adequate handling and release, guess what? We've got a 100% success rate. And we're going to be publishing a paper on that. And you know what? The government will probably just go, no, it's all shit. You know, you can have 1,000 animals, all recorded, we'll look at the data, but they're the wrong colour. You know, they came from across the border. There'll be something wrong with them. So, all right, so we move on to what's possible now. That lends itself to what I was just saying. We're treating animals often in the worst possible state. And Steve knows this animal because he's got it in care at the moment. So this is Maguli. I call him Mr. Wonderful because he's actually just such a sweetheart. And this poor guy was actually trapped in fence wire for possibly 2 weeks. Huge lacerations, horrible injuries, big cuts underneath the leg, and you can actually see it was cut into the tail. And this is all, don't forget too, you know, the fantastic wildlife corridors in the A.C.T. You know, just highways or a wildlife corridor. Those wonderful underpasses that you ride under, wildlife corridor. And the 3,000 fences that a lot of these kangaroos have to go through to hopefully ever see a national park again. That's why they get trapped in this stuff. So our environment is getting smaller and smaller. It's undeniable. Urbanisation, and these poor animals suffer the consequences. Not only that, we also have idiots who are demonising them, shooting them, and burning their homes. And then we'll probably shoot them again anyway. So it's a cyclic idiocy that we need to finally bring an end to. That's Maguli now. So yes. You just want to give them a hug, don't you? But you can thank Steve for that. We've spent probably, what, 2-3 hours pulling maggots out of him. And yeah, it was probably an injury that was, festering for probably 2 weeks. So we were the deep tissue maggots. But the point I'm saying that is not self-indulgently, but the point is, with skilled treatment, proper veterinary supervision, people who know their shit about medications, adequate rehabilitation environment, it's a perfect outcome. And that's what they don't want to know. Because, no, they're a stressed animal and all you can do is kill them. That's all you can do. It's the best thing. Rubbish. And I will front anyone in any public forum that wants to come up against me and say something contrary to that. Because it's bullshit. We have a 100% success rate with our captures, and as I said, some of them in the worst possible conditions, where they've even been data twice, 3 times. I'm not God, but as I said, if you do it correctly, it's really easy. So it's not just about the tranquilizing, but it's about, it'll lend itself on to what we can do now, especially with the mobilisation and hand injection. Alright, so we've got, bear with me, how do I play this, Steve? What's the play button, please? Alright, so this is actually just over Christmas. This was a cruelty case where I had to translocate, which, if you read the kangaroo management plan, doesn't happen. High mortality rates can't happen, okay? You can't move kangaroos without fear of absolute death. So 9 kangaroos moved in 4 hours. And they're all magically still alive. Must be doing something very wrong. So that's how bad it is. That was actually just darting that animal. So that was the 30-metre target acquisition. And this is what we'll be doing for fertility control as well. That's how easy that is. And that's how loud it was as well. I'm not sure if you could hear the volume, but...
So in the back there?
in the thigh muscle.
Yeah, pretty good.
I've got an image to actually show where it goes. So same thing again. These animals were actually, this was a, as I said, a cruelty case, but the landowner was violent. We had the police involved. He was running around with motorbikes, running them down, and harassing them for over 2 weeks. So deprived them of food, deprived them of water, and because, we'll look at this, the type of fencing in here, no means of escape. So there were joeys over one side of the fence, mum over this side because she got in, couldn't get out. Dependent joey was over the other side, and now she was too weak to get back to the joey, because this fencing is just absolutely horrendous. And this is synonymous out at Murray Bateman, which is just dissected to acre blocks. Absolute death trap for kangaroos. But once again, their habitats are being ripped away. And the only logical road forward now is fertility control. It's not shooting. Shooting's an idiot's errand. Same shit every year. Can you not see something wrong with this picture? You know, so if we can actually manage populations non-lethally, that's the way forward. That's the logical step forward. So that's actually, sorry mate, that's
Okay.
just goes into the thigh muscle.
Yeah.
And that's that data.
Yeah.
All right, big item. He was one of the last ones that I moved at 2 o'clock in the morning. But you know, these are big 90 kilo boys. And once again, myth says they won't live. You know, myopathy, home range animal, all the rest of it. Look, I've moved animals for years now, and some of them are still alive on my property today. I know them by name, I know their ear markings, and you know, these guys, once again, responsible remote capture, good treatment, and 100% success rate. And that's on Christmas Day. That's some of the guys that I actually moved. So they actually formed their own little mob because they were a family inside that home range area, and they now still actually live on my property. All right, just going on once more to, this is a free roaming kangaroo. It was actually stuck in a storage facility at Braidwood. Same thing again, in-pouch joey, stressed animal because it was actually chased around by a vet and the guy who actually owned this place for 4 days or something, or whatever, highly stressed animal. But once again, it was data correctly. Oh shit, sorry.
5.
5, oh god. Haven't even gone into research. Sorry, I just kind of digressed there. The important component, so A.C.T government people, you can take note here. Things we're looking at, which you can start asking them questions too. They're looking at laborious, stupid things like 6 people to dart one kangaroo, administer fertility control, still after 12 years of achieving results. They're looking at site reactions, you know, the most basic fundamental things. So ask yourself, you know, a short-term project taking that long with no published work. That's why we're just fast-tracking ours, because we've got all the information. We know what's out there. So we're just looking at things like optimisation of remote delivery techniques, so we know what's available now. We can dart them, you've seen that. Works perfectly. Hand inject them, tag them, done. Identification of threatened animals. So what we're actually looking at doing is innovation. What we're doing in regards to that innovation is techniques that will actually translate to animals around the world. So we'll be actually able to administer a combined vaccine to bison, wolves, deer, and it will actually translate to many target species around the world who are facing the same demonisation as kangaroos here are in Australia. But you need to ask yourself, with the $500,000 that Rattenbury coughed up and still killed kangaroos, why aren't the A.C.T government innovating? Why aren't they looking at a smaller dart instead of the injector marker dart that was available for 12 years? Fletcher admitted Willow actually found it. The evidence that they achieved results 12 years ago. They couldn't administer it remotely. Yet only last year, they're fiddling with these and failed them. But they were available for over 12 years. Why wouldn't you investigate that? suppose you've got to want to. Visible spectrum analysis, remote administration, competency and evaluation. Well, that is actually what we're going to be inviting the A.C.T government to be part of. So anyone that's got a firearms permit, tranquillizer firearms permit, and if you're failing, we want to know why. So we're going to ask everyone that's doing research in Victoria and around Australia to be part of our research project. So if you've got a firearms permit and you're failing, love you to come along and we can do an evaluation on your skill sets, accuracy, knowledge, and just so we can raise that bar on research. So when you're failing, we know why. Phase 2. Basically we go into behavioural studies as well, which will actually bring to light those who wrote the code of practice for killing joeys, the humane killing of joeys in the kangaroo industry, because they got a vet to do that. We have a neuroscientist, and bypass. Dr. Kelsey Zimmerman is our neuroscientist, and because she actually is a specialist in early life trauma, my number 2 came up against me in ACAT, big specialist, talked about the plasticity of joeys. So when mum gets her head blown off and the joey goes running into the bush, they'll get over it, doesn't matter. But because now we have a neuroscientist, not a vet, who's not qualified to actually talk about such things, we are actually now looking at the fact of early separation, the stress, and the cruelty component that these animals actually face. And I'm not sure if everyone can read that. But essentially, we're talking about a massive amounts of stress that you basically just fobbed off. We're bullied into thinking it just doesn't matter. You know, it's done in the dead of night, you're home in bed, you're asleep, you don't give a shit. You know, that poor animal can go off and just die. And this is also the same guy who appeared in court, couldn't account for 30 joeys. And he was the auditor on the 2012 Kangaroo Cup. And he couldn't account for 30-something mothers who had dual lactating teats. Who cares? They're plastic. So we have a neuroscientist. We're going to be writing a paper. So if we ever want to go back to court again, we have that. And it's also going to bring the RSPCA into question with publishing that paper on the code of practice. So, and also that will also bring great pressure on the kangaroo industry. Going back to that imagery before, they think they're accountable. No, they're not. They're, you know, inspectors in vehicles getting away with crimes. So, you know, let's start exposing this stuff. So, just in summary, this is going to take a huge shift in cultural thinking in Australia. You know, we don't give a shit. Kangaroos, you know, they're jumping into our cars apparently. You know, they're on the roads, they're in reserves. The A.C.T government say they should be culled every year. It's the right thing to do. You know it is. So why bother saving them? Why bother doing this research? And as I said, I'm right. Because the only way to manage populations, and we're supposed to be intelligent, thinking human beings, is in a non-lethal manner. I mean, we control every species on this planet except our own. And we're taking away their habitat, forcing them onto the roads. We've got people bullshitting about wildlife corridors. And come on, I mean, you'd have to be an idiot to believe that garbage. And I'm being quite frank here, it's just like, for A.C.T government representatives, it's absolute garbage. You know, treat us like intelligent human beings, and we will respond accordingly. But the thing is, as I said, fertility control is going to be implemented worldwide. It will bring an end to the kangaroo industry. You know, at the moment, we're creating myths of abundance, and we're hanging on for dear life, and we won't publish that paper because we want to keep going with this. And it's going to come to an end. It's not an if, it's a when. And this will be translated around the world, as I said, with bison, deer, and other demonised animals. But it's also going to take legislative change. So this year, in a double election year in the ACT, obviously support the party that is going to do something for the animals and highlight solutions. Thank you.